Listen, I know this is going to sting a little, but you need to hear it. You can be the kindest, most generous, most thoughtful person in the room, and someone will still dislike you. And the truth is, it's not because you're doing anything wrong. It's because kindness doesn't make you immune to judgment, jealousy, or misunderstanding. Today, I'm going to tell you exactly why this happens and how to stop letting it eat you alive. Kindness exposes insecurity in others in ways most people don't realize, and this is why it often feels confusing when your good intentions are met with hostility or dislike. When you act with kindness, you're not just offering a smile or a helping hand. You're shining a light on someone else's internal world. For people who are comfortable with themselves, your kindness is welcomed and appreciated. But for those who are wrestling with insecurity, fear, or unhealed wounds, your kindness can feel like a mirror reflecting back everything they don't like about themselves. It isn't that your gesture was wrong, it's that their inner dialogue distorts the way they receive it. Imagine a situation where you go out of your way to compliment someone. You see them, you recognize something positive, and you express it honestly. Instead of gratitude, you get a cold response or even suspicion. That's not about you. It's about what that compliment triggered inside them. Maybe they don't believe they're worthy of praise. Maybe they've been told all their life that people only give compliments when they want something in return. Your simple act of kindness can activate their self-doubt, and in that moment, instead of seeing your generosity, they only feel exposed. Their insecurity makes them misinterpret your intention, and rather than appreciating your kindness, they resent it because it highlights a gap between how they see themselves and how you see them. This also happens in professional or competitive environments. Let's say you extend support to a colleague who's struggling and you do it purely because you care. In an insecure mind, that gesture may feel like pity or condescension. They might think, do they see me as weak? Do they think I can't handle it? Your willingness to help can unintentionally spotlight their vulnerability, and instead of thanking you, they might pull away or even start disliking you. Again, this has nothing to do with the purity of your kindness and everything to do with the discomfort of their own inner reality. The psychology behind this is simple but powerful. Human beings are constantly comparing themselves to others, and kindness creates an opportunity for comparison. If someone already feels like they're not good enough, your kindness can be seen as proof that you're better or above them. They may feel inferior next to you, even though that's never your intention. This is why some people push back against kindness. It threatens their fragile sense of self. Instead of receiving it, they reject it to protect themselves from what they perceive as judgment, even if no judgment exists. Think about friendships where you're always the one listening, supporting, and showing up. At first, it seems like a blessing to be that person, but over time, you may notice tension. The friend might start snapping at you or distancing themselves. Why? Because your consistency, your kindness, your ability to show up is unconsciously reminding them of their own inability to do the same. They may feel guilty or inadequate, and rather than facing those feelings, it's easier for them to label you as too much, too nice, or even fake. It's important to understand this dynamic because otherwise you'll take it personally. You'll question your worth, your choices, and whether you should stop being kind altogether. The reality is, kindness itself is never the problem. The problem is the way it interacts with someone else's insecurity. And once you understand this, you free yourself from the need to control other people's reactions. You realize that their response says far more about what's going on inside of them than it does about the quality of your character. People project their pain onto you more often than you realize, and this is one of the biggest reasons why kindness can be met with anger, suspicion, or even hatred. Every person you meet carries a lifetime of experiences, memories, and unresolved wounds, and when you interact with them, you're not just dealing with the person standing in front of you, you're also colliding with their history. If someone has been betrayed, manipulated, or mistreated in the past, those scars shape the way they see the world. When you show kindness instead of feeling safe, They may unconsciously link your actions to a past experience where kindness was followed by pain, and suddenly you become the target of emotions that don't actually belong to you. Consider someone who grew up in an environment where love and kindness were conditional. Maybe they only received affection when they achieved something, or maybe kindness was used as a strategy to control them. Fast forward to today, you show up with genuine care, but to them, it feels suspicious. They're waiting for the catch, the hidden motive, the moment you reveal why you were really being nice. That fear is not about you at all. It's about the pain of their past being projected onto you in the present. What you see as generosity, they interpret as manipulation because their brain has been wired to expect hurt after kindness. This is why some people push back when you're kind. You might ask how their day is going, and instead of a warm answer, they give you a dismissive or defensive response. You might lend a helping hand, and instead of gratitude, you get irritation. Their reaction is not rooted in your action, it's rooted in the unresolved emotions they're carrying. Your kindness has accidentally touched an old wound, and the pain of that wound gets projected outward in your direction. In that moment, you become the stand-in for everyone who has ever disappointed or hurt them, even though you've done nothing wrong. Projection also happens because people struggle to separate what they feel inside from what they see outside. If someone feels unworthy, unloved, or untrustworthy, they may assume others feel the same way about them. So when you extend kindness, their inner critic whispers, "This can't be real, they don't really care, they're just pretending." Instead of seeing your kindness as genuine, they overlay their inner narrative onto your actions, twisting the meaning of what you've done. In reality, your kindness exposes the gap between how they see themselves and the compassion you're offering, and that gap is painful for them to sit with. Even in relationships where you're consistent and honest, projection can poison the connection. For example, if a friend has been betrayed before, they may constantly doubt your intentions, no matter how kind you are. If a colleague has been undermined in the past, they may assume your encouragement is secretly condescending. Your actions don't match the story they're telling themselves, so instead of changing their story, they reshape your actions to fit it. This is the exhausting reality of projection. It has nothing to do with truth and everything to do with the lens through which someone views life. The key to surviving this dynamic is realizing you cannot control someone else's projections. If you don't understand what's happening, it's easy to take their reaction personally and think, "What did I do wrong?" But the truth is, you didn't do anything wrong. Their pain is simply too loud, and your kindness has given it a stage. By understanding this, you protect your own peace. You stop over-explaining yourself, you stop shrinking your kindness to make others comfortable, and you learn to let their reaction be their responsibility, not yours. Because the moment you accept that people project their pain onto you, you also accept that their hatred isn't truly about you, it's about the wounds they're still carrying. Not everyone understands or values kindness, and this is one of the hardest truths to accept if you're someone who genuinely wants to do good in the world. We live in a society where many people are conditioned to be skeptical, competitive, or guarded, and when you show kindness, it doesn't always land the way you expect. Some people see kindness as weakness, others view it as a tactic, and some are simply unable to process it because it doesn't fit into their world view. What feels natural to you might feel foreign or even threatening to someone else, which is why you can give the best of yourself and still be met with dismissal or hostility. Imagine a culture where success is measured by dominance, achievement, or material gain. In such an environment, kindness is often undervalued because it doesn't appear to create an immediate advantage. People raised in that environment may see kindness as unnecessary or even foolish. When you go out of your way to help someone, they might interpret it as you being naive, soft, or easily manipulated. Instead of recognizing the strength it takes to be kind in a harsh world, they assume you don't know how the world works. This misunderstanding can create distance and, in some cases, outright disrespect because they don't value what you're offering. There are also people who have learned to associate kindness with hidden motives. They may have been in situations where kindness was used as a mask for manipulation, where someone offered help or affection only to exploit them later. For these individuals, kindness doesn't equal safety, it equals danger. So when you come into their life offering genuine compassion, their mind immediately questions it. They wonder what you want, what you're trying to gain, or when you're going to reveal the real reason behind your actions. Your kindness doesn't soothe them, it alarms them, and because they don't understand it, they may reject it or even resent you for it. Another layer to this is that not everyone defines kindness in the same way. To you, kindness might be offering encouragement, showing patience, or giving time. To someone else, kindness might mean being brutally honest, setting strict boundaries, or solving problems directly. If your version of kindness doesn't align with their expectations, they may not recognize it as kindness at all. For example, if you listen without judgment, you might think you're being kind, but the other person may think you're being indifferent because they equate kindness with active problem solving. The mismatch in definitions can cause them to undervalue what you're giving simply because they don't interpret it through the same lens. There are also individuals who genuinely don't know how to receive kindness because they've never experienced it consistently. If someone has grown up in an environment filled with criticism, neglect, or conflict, kindness may feel unnatural to them. It can even trigger discomfort because it disrupts the patterns they're used to. Instead of leaning into it, they push it away because it feels strange or undeserved. They may label your kindness as fake, or they might respond with hostility, not because they truly hate you, but because they don't know how to value something they've never learned to trust. This is why it's important to remember that kindness is not a universal language. While it has the potential to bridge gaps and build connections, not everyone is fluent in it. Some will misinterpret it, some will devalue it, and some will outright reject it. If you don't recognize this truth, you risk exhausting yourself trying to win over people who simply don't have the capacity to understand what you're offering. By seeing this clearly, you learn that kindness should never be withheld, but it also shouldn't be given with the expectation that everyone will value it the way you do. Your kindness is a reflection of your character, not a guarantee of how others will respond. Jealousy often disguises itself as dislike, and this is one of the most frustrating dynamics you will ever face when you are genuinely kind to others. On the surface, it may look like someone doesn't like you, doesn't want to be around you, or even openly criticizes you, but underneath those reactions is often jealousy that they don't know how to admit or process. Jealousy is a deeply uncomfortable emotion because it forces people to confront their own feelings of inadequacy, and instead of acknowledging that pain, many choose to mask it with hostility toward the person who triggered it. If your kindness reminds them of something they wish they had, something they wish they could do, or even a version of themselves they wish they could become, you may become a target of their disguised resentment. Think about a workplace where you consistently go out of your way to help colleagues. You offer guidance, support, and encouragement without expecting anything in return. Most people would see this as a strength, but for someone who feels insecure about their own performance, your behavior becomes a threat. They see your generosity as proof of your capability, and it highlights the areas where they feel they fall short. Instead of admitting, "I wish I had that kind of confidence or compassion," they take the easier route and label you as fake, calculating, or insincere. Their jealousy wears the mask of dislike because it's more comfortable for them to criticize you than to face their own self-doubt. This also plays out in friendships or social circles. If you're naturally kind, people are drawn to you, and that attention can make others feel overshadowed. For someone who craves validation but doesn't receive it, watching others respond warmly to your kindness can stir envy. Rather than admitting they feel left out or inferior, they may start distancing themselves from you or even gossiping behind your back. They frame their feelings as dislike, "I just don't like how they act," when in reality, the root is envy of the way your kindness draws people in. They dislike the reflection of what they believe they lack, not the actual person you are. Jealousy disguised as dislike also shows up in more subtle ways. It might be the friend who rolls their eyes when you compliment others, the colleague who questions your motives every time you help, or the acquaintance who accuses you of trying too hard. These behaviors reveal their discomfort not with your actions, but with the way your kindness challenges their internal narrative. Your presence forces them to measure themselves against you, and when they come up short in their own eyes, jealousy takes over. Rather than admitting admiration, they choose criticism, because criticism allows them to regain a sense of superiority, even if only temporarily. It's important to recognize that jealousy often comes from people who actually admire you deep down. They see qualities in you they wish they had, but instead of celebrating or learning from you, they resent you for holding up a mirror to their insecurities. This is why people can seem conflicted. They may mimic you at times, secretly emulate your habits, or even borrow your ideas, but in public, they act as if they dislike you. The truth is, they're not rejecting you, they're rejecting the discomfort of seeing their own unrealized potential through your kindness. The danger in not understanding this dynamic is that you might take their dislike at face value and start questioning yourself. You might think you need to shrink, change, or stop being kind just to avoid negative reactions. But when you see jealousy for what it truly is, you understand that their feelings are about them, not you. Their dislike is a mask, and it says more about what they're wrestling with internally than it does about your behavior. The healthiest response is to continue being yourself without letting their jealousy influence how you show up. Because the moment you stop being kind to avoid triggering others, you allow their insecurities to control your life instead of standing in the truth of who you are. You don't need everyone's approval to live free, and this is one of the most liberating lessons you will ever learn when it comes to dealing with hate, criticism, or misunderstanding despite your kindness. Many of us are conditioned from childhood to seek validation, to fit in, to make sure people like us before we feel secure in who we are. That conditioning creates a constant hunger for approval, a cycle of measuring your worth by the reactions of others. But when you live this way, you hand over control of your life to people who may never understand or appreciate you. The truth is, the freedom you are searching for does not come from universal acceptance. It comes from realizing you will never have it and you don't need it anyway. Consider the way people behave in large groups. No matter how kind, thoughtful, or genuine you are, there will always be someone who questions your motives, someone who misunderstands you, and someone who simply doesn't like you for reasons you cannot control. If you try to manage or fix those reactions, you'll exhaust yourself and dilute your authenticity. The moment you stop chasing approval and start living in alignment with your values, you free yourself from this endless cycle. Approval seeking is like a cage, and while it may feel safe at first, it's still a cage. Freedom means walking out of it, even if that means walking away from certain people's good opinion of you. When you begin to release the need for approval, you also begin to reclaim your energy. Think about how much time is wasted worrying about what others think, the hesitation before you speak, the second guessing after you act, the overthinking about whether you offended someone or came across the right way. All of that mental weight is tied to the belief that your worth depends on someone else's perception. But if you shift that belief and accept that some people will misinterpret you no matter what you do, you suddenly open up space to focus on what truly matters: your growth, your goals, your peace. You start to realize that the approval of others is fickle, while the approval you give yourself is steady and lasting. It's also worth remembering that people's approval is not always an accurate measure of truth or value. History is filled with examples of individuals who were criticized, rejected, or even hated in their time, only to be celebrated later for their courage and authenticity. If they had waited for universal approval, their contributions would have never been made. In the same way, if you hold back your kindness, your talent, or your unique way of being until everyone agrees with it, you'll never fully live. You'll be waiting forever because everyone is an impossible audience to satisfy. The people who matter will see you for who you are, and the rest are not your responsibility. Living free without everyone's approval also means embracing boundaries. When you realize you don't need to be liked by everyone, you start saying no without guilt, you stop apologizing for existing, and you make choices based on what aligns with your values instead of what gains applause. This shift may cause some people to dislike you even more because they lose the version of you who bent over backwards to please them. But in losing their approval, you gain something far greater: self-respect, peace of mind, and the ability to live authentically. The irony is that when you stop chasing approval, you often become more respected, not less. People may not always like you, but they sense your strength, your clarity, and your refusal to be controlled by opinion. That energy commands respect in a way approval seeking never can, and even for those who still dislike you, their disapproval no longer has the power to dictate your choices. That's real freedom, the kind that comes not from pleasing others, but from standing firmly in who you are, knowing that kindness is your choice, not a bargaining chip for acceptance.